Hello, fellow netizens. Today is the 29th of March, 2012. I'm going to start a new series of videos, and they're going to be like Rush Limbaugh on steroids, and I'm going to get in people's faces. And I'm going to get in the face of the left and the right, because the Democrats and the Republicans are entirely corrupted today. And so so are the people of America. Um, you know, if you go to some of these other countries, you'll find people that have a much greater sense of integrity and compassion. And when you literally compare people on a larger scale as communities, once you've got experience down there, you'll realize that America is a really ugly place. And there's other countries that are really ugly too, but there's also some countries out there that are quite. Anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about me before I get in your face, okay, and really get aggressive. And I'm going to. I mean, that's my nature. I'm of German and Scottish heritage. And if it wasn't for my Christian belief, I would probably go the way of Hitler, because I tend to be really aggressive. But I'm also a loving and caring man. And I think my parents developed that in me, as well as my sense of belief. And so I follow a Christian belief, but I don't go to church. I don't believe in traditional Orthodox Western Christianity. And so I follow my own way. If you read the poem, I think it's by Badger Clark, A Cowboy's Prayer, and then you'll know a little bit about how I am. Anyway, a little bit about me, so you know where I'm coming from, and my right to speak out the way I do, because I got to give you some sense of my credibility. I started out at the bottom, and so I know how it is, so you people can't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I started out at the bottom. In high school, I worked to try to make a little bit of extra money, and I worked for a restaurant as a dishwasher, okay? And then after I got out of high school, I started working for some moving companies. So I'd load these moving companies up. I got paid a little bit more, but it was really, really heavy labor. You're working outside in the heat of the day, and you're carrying couches and the various things of significant weight, and you're just going back and forth. Anyway, I did that part-time. There was no full-time work. We were already heading towards a recession, and that hit in 1981, and it made things really hard. But anyway, I'm still in the late 1970s, and so I started going to school at Tacoma Community College in the mid to late 1970s, and I almost flunked out after 2 years. And my parents have always supported me. They're very loving parents. My dad's passed on now, but I was fortunate. They never divorced, and they were both very loving people. They had their fights, but but they held it together, and it gave. I think it particularly came out in me, and how I succeeded in the years that followed. Anyway, I remember working at TCC. I met another guy, my advisor, and it's one thing for your parents to tell you that you're gonna, they have a lot of faith in you, but you need to hear that really from somebody else, because your parents are always gonna think you're the greatest thing. And so I needed to hear it from somebody else. And finally, I applied myself a little bit at TCC, and I brought my grades up from, D's to C's, essentially. I had a few A's in there, but mostly, I wasn't doing so well. And my advisor took me aside, and he had a master's degree. He had tried to go for a PhD, and he told me, he was honest with me, very open. He said that he had tried to go for a PhD, but he wasn't quite good enough. And when you go to college and you try that, and if you don't make it for your PhD, they usually honor you with a master's degree instead. And so that's what happened to him. And so he went to teach at a community college, which I thought was cool. And so, especially being honest with me. And then he told me he saw that I was excelling. I had excelled in high school in mathematics. I was in the highest mathematics courses in high school. And even though there's a tangent, my science teacher told me I amount to nothing. I mean, he just came up to me one day in the labs. I don't know, we were dissecting frogs or something. And, there was something I was queasy about or something. But anyway, he come right up to me, and him and I didn't get along. I didn't do anything. I was a very quiet kid, but for some reason he didn't like quiet kids. And he come right up to me and he whispered to me, he says, why are you even in my class? You're going to amount to nothing. I mean, those are his literal words to me as a high school student. And, I really felt like I was a failure because other people had been telling me that too. I was different. I was different because I was smart. I didn't fit with the other kids. I was at home hand taming wild birds when they were out partying and doing drugs and doing girls. Okay? And so I didn't get along with, well, not that I didn't get along. I didn't identify. They didn't want me around. I was the guy that, I was the nerd. I had the pocket protector, and I had my microscope, and I had my telescope, and I had my chemistry set, and I really appreciated those things, and I was very into life sciences. And so to hear this from my teacher in high school, it decimated me. And so that's really sad. Some of these teachers, they don't deserve to be teachers. Anyway, back to my employment. I was going to TCC, and my teacher took me aside, and he said, or my advisor, and he said, "Kid, I know you can do better because I've seen that you were taking the higher classes in high school in mathematics, and I've seen some of your classes here at TCC actually pulled A's in some of the harder courses, and yet some of the other courses I was flunking out." And so he had a talk with me, and it encouraged me. In my fourth year, full-time student at TCC, that's not saying much because of community college, but it says something when I compare myself to all the other students. I pulled a 4.0, and that was under a plus or minus system. So I pulled a 4.0 for the full year, straight A's. And then I knew I could do better too. And I wasn't what my science teacher had told me in high school. Anyway, it gave me a lot of encouragement to have somebody express belief in me, somebody outside my family. And it gave me encouragement when I actually applied myself that I could pull straight A's, which was far better than everybody else that I knew at the time. And so I went to my dad. I graduated from TCC, and jobs dried up because we were moving into the recession of 1981. And the only job I could find was working at Kmart as a janitor, graveyard shift janitor. And so that's what I did. I had to have an income, and I wasn't proud. And so I took a job as a janitor at Kmart. Okay? And literally, I started at the bottom. I was scraping other people's feces off the walls in the bathrooms and off the floor. You know, there's people that actually intentionally use the toilet paper to grab a hold of their own feces and spread it across the walls. I mean, this wasn't uncommon in some of our stores and stuff in those days. The janitors had to all clean it up, but there's people out there that are just, they have no ethics and they have no integrity. They're just rotten people. Of course, you've seen a lot of that. A lot of these guys grew up and became politicians, but I just had to say that. But anyway, I asked my dad. I remember I was talking to my dad in the garage one day, and we were working on one of the cars. My dad was a mechanic, and he ended up owning his own business, J&B Service, working on electric forklifts in the Seattle-Tacoma area. And anyway, I was having a discussion with him while we were working in the garage, and I said, I'm thinking about going to college because I did pretty good my last year at TCC, or I was doing pretty good my last year at TCC. And I kind of asked him about it, but I didn't directly come right out and say, Dad, can I have some money to go to college? I didn't know how to approach him about it because he was a German too. He had a hell of anger. I mean, if you got him pissed off, man, it was scary. And so I didn't know how to approach him. You know, he's a loving man too. I got to tell you, he was a loving man. But anyway, I remember him turning around and looking at me, and he knew what I was leading towards. And he looked at me, and I thought, oh God, I've really done it now. And he says, well, you know, son, I can't take it with me. I mean, those words stick with me to this day. He looked at me and he said, I can't take it with me. Meaning that he had a little bit of money and he would help me go to college if I decided to do that. And the other thing you'll find out is I'm an emotional kind of guy. Anyway, that's the end of this video for now. Peace on earth, goodwill towards men.